Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're streaming or later viewing this webinar. My name is Joseph Christensen, and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager for Kasten by Veeam. In today's 30-minute webinar, we will introduce Kubernetes learning fundamentals, Kubernetes featuring learning.kasten.io. We'll go through a mini lab demo, review labs you can take right now, future labs, an interview with a special guest, and a generous raffle at the end. Our chat will also be moderated by an instructor of learning.kasten.io. So please ask your questions in the Q&A window of your screen. We're ready to take your questions. So let's jump right in. Whether you're new to the community or a seasoned vet, you know that Kubernetes over the last several years has become the preferred container orchestrator of choice. With this extreme growing interest in the topic, we at Kasten decided to create a dedicated, free educational platform that welcomes all experience levels with self-paced, hands-on labs. We also provide a variety of resources such as ebooks, white papers, product documentation, and other material for further study. We welcome your community input on where we should take the platform next to provide better Kubernetes education. Let us know your thoughts via our Slack channel or email that I will provide at the end of the webinar. Since launching mid-October of this year, learning.kasten.io, or the platform as I'll refer to it, has hosted over 5,500 users. Over 2,000 individual labs have been completed and 400 Helmsman badges have been earned, which is completing all 3 labs for Module 1, but more on that later. That is impressive and is set to only gain more traction. The point isn't about patting ourselves on the back. It's about showcasing that the thirst for knowledge for education is immense. To answer this call, we scoured the industry for a diverse set of voices, each experts in their fields, to test and present these topics for you. We at Kasten believe in the boundless virtue in our global community and wanted instructors to be inclusive of that value. Today, I'm going to run through a mini lab that was featured at KubeCon and Cloud Native Con North America 2021. The mini lab is also still available on the platform and is a sublime starting point for your Kubernetes journey, or to review the basic building blocks. What is a pod, a control plane, a deployment? I'll also highlight the hands-on portion that gives learners a chance to play in the sandbox. But trust us, it's a clean sandbox. So let's take a look. Now, this wouldn't be much of a dynamic webinar if I were to take you through the demo slide by slide, reading off the bullet points. Instead, what I'll do is give you a better idea of how the labs are structured, so you can have a good understanding about what you're going to get involved in. Keeping in mind, all labs are powered by Instruct, a superb learning tool, and every lab is going to be structured the same way. So once you get the rhythm down of this first one, you're going to be set for all future labs. Now, there's a few housekeeping notes. First, take note that each lab should be completed in one sitting. There is a time limit, but it's fairly generous. The mini lab, for example, is about 20 minutes, whereas most labs are about an hour. This KubeCon lab has 3 sections. Number 1, self-assessment. In this portion, please let us know where your level of expertise is. Number 2, terminology review and challenge questions, i.e. a couple quizzes. And number 3, the hands-on portion. This section will cover deploying Kasten K10, the #1 Kubernetes backup solution, backing up a data service in MySQL, and protecting a data service. Now here's that self-assessment. Take a quick look at it, because this will help us cultivate how we're going to structure labs and topics in the future. Remember, we're here for you, our community, so always communicate. We're listening. For our demo, we'll go ahead and skip this part for now. In the terminology review sections, click each side arrow to the right or to the left of the screen to get all the needed information to complete the quiz. You can always navigate within the white arrows, but once you complete the quiz, you can't go back to a previous section. And of course, it is encouraged to take notes for the quiz. These are good topics. Once you've prepared, you should be ready to try the quiz. Note, every quiz potentially has multiple answers. We designed it this way because, just like working with tech in the real world, there's plenty of nuance. So we want to keep you on your toes every step of the way. Success. Now, after you've completed all the quizzes, it's time for the hands-on portion. Please be patient with the environment builds. They could take several minutes to set up. Since this is an open playground, we need to build it fresh in each new lab. Take it as an opportunity to review previous material or get in that bathroom break. Now we get to the hands-on portion of the lab with a real Kubernetes environment. As you can see, we have a terminal command line, a dashboard, and detailed instructions to make you comfortable working in this space. You will be toggling between these two. As always, when dealing with the command line, be patient. You can't ruin anything in this space, and that's the best time to be at play. Just like a real environment, the only way forward is successfully running the right code. If you fail, that's okay. Fail fast and learn from your mistakes. Once you've successfully aced all the quizzes and run the hands-on lab, it's time to collect your badge. Again, more on that in a sec. This concludes a run-through of the KubeCon and Cloud Native Con mini lab, but that's only the beginning of your journey. To kick off the platform, we included 3 labs as part of our first module, which we call Kubernetes Principles. Lab 1 is Build Your First Cluster. This highlights the building blocks of running Kubernetes. Some of these concepts may look familiar from the mini lab, but the hands-on portion really gives you a firm understanding of how Kubernetes became the preferred cloud orchestrator. In Lab 2, we build an application. Adding on to the concepts of setting up a cluster in Lab 1, now we'll explore how to make an application using this unique infrastructure. To do that, we'll define how to scale, add data, define storage classes, and more. And finally, for Module 1, Lab 3 gets to the heart of what we love to do at Kasten, backup. Now that we have a running cluster for our application, we'll learn how backups run differently in Kubernetes with a step-by-step setup. And we'll dive deeper into our flagship solution, Kasten K10, to experience a detailed showcase of its benefits. But as I said earlier, this is only module 1. The learning.kasten.io platform is far from finished providing educational content to our community. We have a full schedule of labs covered for the future. Module 2, Understanding Applications in Kubernetes, will also consist of 3 labs. The first, Lab 4, is Application Consistency. Learn how Kubernetes native application backup and recovery works using Kasten K10 and Canister, our open source project, with hands-on portions detailing databases, local configurations, and, as always, much, much more. Lab 4 is complete and will be available on the site shortly, and we cannot wait to hear what you think about it. In addition to providing you with invaluable information, each completed lab also rewards learners with, as I mentioned before, the digital badges. Akin to a positive report card, these badges can and should be proudly displayed on the digital refrigerator, such as Twitter, Instagram, and the like. Hey, we want you to be proud of your accomplishments and let the world know I'm on my way to be a Kubernetes master. To illustrate this point, now is an excellent time to introduce our special guest, Adam Fisher. Adam couldn't be with us live today, but we had a chance to talk earlier this week to a very enlightening conversation about his journey into Kubernetes. Let's see what he had to say.
I'd like to introduce you to our special guest for today's webinar, Adam Fisher. Adam, would you give us a brief introduction?
Sure, yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Adam Fisher. I am a cloud solutions architect at Worldwide Technology focused on AWS.
Wonderful. Now, as I understand it, that you understand cloud native technologies, but Kubernetes is not part of your day job.
Correct, yeah. I, like many people, come from an infrastructure virtualization background and kind of moved into the cloud space. So certainly, Kubernetes is something that is on everybody's radar, but I am fairly new to the actual architecture and kind of the underlying technology. So really working to get up to speed, just like a lot of other people with my background.
Right. So you're like many of the learners that are on our platform. Maybe they've heard about it, they want to learn more about it, and so like you, they're just kind of jumping in, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's kind of what we have to do to kind of get by in this new cloud native world. And I feel like for the past handful of years, it was always cloud is this new thing that's going to happen, and now it is here. And so we always have to kind of stay ahead of the curve, and people are actively out there using Kubernetes, including many of my customers. So definitely it's not a distant future, but it's here today.
Right. The future is now is the constant phrase I like to say around the house, especially when you see like the fridge wanting to connect to your Wi-Fi and you say, no, maybe that's a little too much. But all right, well, awesome. Well, I want to talk about kind of how you've experienced the platform so far, and just like how Kubernetes has been like integrated into like your everyday work life.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, again, I'm not actively working with it day in, day out, but as I'm working with customers and helping them to figure out cloud architecture and where they want to go with their development processes, certainly it's something that is becoming more and more common. So for me, anything that I can do to kind of start at not only from the ground level, but really get my hands on and start kind of tinkering around and see how the technology works will give me a better understanding for these conversations that are happening today with customers and you know, people who are actively out there doing stuff in the cloud.
Right, right. I guess I kind of imagine it. It's like if you lived in Germany, it's good to have like the German language down, but then also know a little bit of Italian, a little bit of Austrian. Like you can move around in the space because you're aware of the different languages that are going on.
Yeah, for sure. And certainly it's good to be able to talk on kind of a basic level, even if you're talking with people who are kind of knee deep in the modern application architecture side of things. I don't know that everybody expects you to be the expert per se,
Sure.
but certainly to be able to have a conversation and knowing how those things tie into kind of general cloud architecture and certainly a lot of on-prem and hybrid cloud type of environments as well. Everything is so connected these days that they're having a very general and wide skill set is very helpful when it comes to even cloud native.
Right, right. And I wanted to point out what you said about like nobody is the expert, and say, I mean, isn't that I believe there is some phrase that talks about how like the true master realizes he's always the teacher, or or always the learner, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so let's segue that into the platform itself. You've spent a lot of time on there. You've gone through a lot of labs. I'm kind of curious how like the structure of both like the content, but then also how like the actual education tracks work out, from like the definitions part at the beginning, terminology, the prerequisites, and of course the labs themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely really like the fact that the labs kind of start off on that ground floor with the terminology and giving you a lot of the basics, because coming from maybe a virtualization space or an infrastructure space, there's a lot of things that we take for granted that 5, 6, 7 years ago were new to us and we had to learn, and it's kind of going through that same process all over again. So just getting in and understanding the basics of Kubernetes and how to have that conversation so that you can understand what people are talking about is really good. And then I do like how the learning aspect, is something that you can kind of do on your own time. You can read through. It gives you access to, maybe further reading that you can do on your own. But then you get right into an actual live environment where you can, kind of click through, interact with things and see how they're working and get maybe those first baby steps in for. Especially for people who haven't had the chance to get into a Kubernetes environment and actually click through and type some of the basic commands.
Yeah, I think the command line can always be kind of intimidating, especially when it's just new and it's just different language or whatever. But I always say like it's like you have a key ring and you have like all these keys that you're trying to like fit into the lock, and that's what the command line is. There's one answer to move forward. You just got to keep trying. It's okay because the lock's not going to break.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, it's good to have a little bit of guidance. And also when it comes to that, just the fact that there is an environment there for you to begin kind of kicking the tires and stepping through. I mean, I know for myself and for others, I'm sure out there, just the commands and the work that it would take to stand up that environment in the first place might be daunting enough that you don't even get to the point where you can get started on that ground level. So, just to have access to a fully functioning environment that you can really get in and start getting dirty right away without having to worry about how do I stand this up and what are the prerequisites, and maybe I'm a little in over my head, so it gets you off on the ground floor.
Yeah, and the stakes are pretty low. It's not like you're going to screw something up and then someone's data is just going to evaporate. Like
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no surprise cloud lab bills at the end of the month or anything like that.
yeah, wouldn't that be something? So, all right. So now you had, like I said, the exposure, specifically from the platform. Where do you want to go with this knowledge? Like you said, I know you said it's not part of every day. It makes you fully aware, but like what's the grander scale?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, really, it's just getting deeper into that modern cloud native world. So um, I'm definitely, I kind of learn by doing, and so for me, I feel like the hardest part is always just getting started. But
Yeah.
once I do get started, and there's sort of that little spark of interest, then I can, just kind of ride that and really try to take it as far as I can. So for me, I think it's a great tool to help me really kind of kick that off and get started. But now that I do have sort of that basic knowledge and experience, I know as we move even further into this cloud native world, there's going to be more of an ask on me and those in my team to be able to get deeper and look more at cloud native architectures and really kind of start going into that space a little bit more than we do today. So I think certainly looking to expand upon that knowledge and just like all the other technologies that I've learned in the past is really start getting beyond the basics and start maybe kind of building out on my own and see where it goes from there.
The proverbial tip of the iceberg, as it were.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, talking about our future release schedule, because our goal is to do at least one new lab per month. So we'd have 4 modules for the whole year. So I assume then you'll be signed up first to see what the next lab will be, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely enjoyed working, through the ones that I've had a chance to do this far. And so once I see that there's going to be a new lab available, I mean, it's right at your fingertips. So it's easy to just hop in and spend 30 to 60 minutes, whatever it may be, and, kind of go through and see if there's anything new to learn and kind of expand upon.
Yeah. And of course, the one thing would be I'd be foolish not to mention, of course, is the community aspect. I mean, I think that's a huge component to the cloud native world that I'm always impressed with, whether you're going to KubeCon or a reInvent or something like that, where you just see all of these people so passionate about it. And I think that's something else that you kind of buy into once you start learning about Kubernetes is like, oh yeah, there is this support structure, whether it's on Slack or Discord or GitHub or wherever, right?
For sure. Yeah, definitely. And it's great to be out there and see that, there is such an active community and that there's a lot of people that you can reach out to and draw from. And I know, even on the Kasten side, there's a lot of people who are very active out there that are providing a lot of, even beyond this learning platform, a lot of great advice and really good tips and tricks on how to get started. So certainly this is definitely, I feel like, an easy thing to kind of get into and really get started. But there's a lot of other great information out there as well. So like, this learning platform combined with a bunch of the other things that have been put out there through the community is a great way to certainly get started.
Yeah. And on that same note, I was going to say, so all right, let's do a little role play, so to speak. You're still you, maybe with a top hat or something. You can accessorize as you want, but you're going to get started in Kubernetes. What would be your advice to yourself as the Atom newbie? You haven't learned anything. And I mean, obviously the answer is you go to the learning.kasten.io platform. I mean, that's obvious, but like, what else would you tell yourself to encourage yourself to work through?
Certainly, I would say, just do it, just get started. I mean, that's the biggest thing is, and I think you had mentioned, like with the command line, that's one of the things that a lot of traditional IT admins and maybe even people who are starting to work with cloud native a little bit are maybe, you know, kind of used to your consoles and your GUIs and those kind of things. And even just the thought of, oh, I've got to do a lot of this via command line, that might be too daunting to just think, why do I even want or need to mess with this? But yeah, it's really, you know, this is new, it's out there, people are using it. And while I don't think, you know, all of a sudden it's just going to be 100% Kubernetes, cloud native architectures all across the board, it is going to be a big chunk of what enterprise IT and enterprise architecture is moving forward. So yeah, just go ahead and get started. You can always learn something, and you're not behind the curve at this point. There's a lot to learn and a lot of people in the same boat.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you. You said you're not behind the curve. Is to say, I think there's always that perception that like, oh, well, it's too late. Like the boat has already left. But I mean, no, we're still so early on in the stage. I mean, Kubernetes was just even, you know, kind of deemed like that is the cloud orchestrator of choice, right? That wasn't that long ago. So if you want it, you can get it, right?
For sure.
And let's flip the script on it, because I said if you were a newbie, well, now kind of let's invert on the inversion. If you are more adept at Kubernetes and you've just been introduced to the platform, and you know, obviously you're just, you know, you're beguiled by, you know, the graphic interface and everything else, because the site is beautiful. But what do you get if you're seasoned, a little more seasoned in Kubernetes, by going back and doing these labs?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly there's the aspect of just learning Kubernetes in general, and what does that mean, and you know, how do I get that experience? But then there's also the Kasten K10 product that is part of the labs as well. And so you know, for me, I think anyone who's seasoned and might be able to kind of skip over the Kubernetes basics will still get value out of seeing the Kasten product. And you know, I know that there's a lot of talk about, you know, maybe some people who are in the cloud native architecture space maybe aren't, you know, super deep into like backups and data protection for that, or maybe that isn't maybe, you know, kind of the top one or two or three things that come into consideration. So so adding that focus and really just getting a chance to see Kasten, see how easy it is to not only deploy, but to you know, kind of run and be able to protect things at an application level, really would be beneficial to see, you know, hey, is this something worth looking into? But also, you know, where do we stand today with backup and data protection for our modern applications, if that is something that, you know, maybe kind of gets glossed over and just building things out.
Right. So in other words, you kind of get a 2-for-1 education deal: Kubernetes and the Kasten K10. Let me just kind of slide that under the door a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, awesome. I thank you so much for kind of giving us the full view of all of this. Like I said, you know, when Lab 4 is released, I really hope to see that Adam Fisher name on that registration list.
Awesome. Definitely. Yeah. You will see that certification completion badge in there. Definitely.
That's right. That's right. I want to see it spread all over social media, LinkedIn included.
Will do.
All right. Thank you again, Adam. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
And now the big moment, our $300 Amazon gift card raffle. While our webinar moderator reaches into an oversized foam cowboy hat to randomly select a winner, please note we will need the winner's home address for my dance purposes. Also, be sure to respond to our poll, as it greatly helps us learn how we can help you. Okay, I hear a hand shuffling in the hat, pulling out a piece of paper that says, Larry Bogwandine, congratulations, you are our winner. A member of our marketing team will be out to reach you shortly. Now to wrap up, learning.kasten.io was made for all of you, a community devoted to education. Whether you're staying ahead of the curve at work, setting forth in a new career direction, or just the pure joy of learning, our platform is here for you, as is our active Slack channel with like-minded learners together in this wonderful pursuit. We welcome your inputs and thoughts, including how you might contribute to the learning effort as an instructor or even contributing blogger. Registration is open, so please come join us and take some labs. On behalf of Kasten by Veeam, thank you again for joining me today, and have a wonderful remainder of your morning, afternoon, or evening.